Welcome to this episode of Easy Learning. My name is Sean and I'll be teaching you maths. Today we would learn how to plot coordinates. We would look at several things in this. It's a very interesting topic. You know, we've been looking at measurements, we've looked at units, we've looked at time, and we will learn why coordinates are important today. So wherever you are, bring out your pen, your pencils, your notebook, and let's have fun with maths. Coordinates. What are coordinates and why are coordinates very, very important? A lot of times people have issues in maths because they don't know the why. So let's deal with the very big question. Let's put a big question mark on the board. Yep, so we have the big question mark. Why coordinates? Some people have difficulties in maths because they don't know the why. That's a very big question. Now, to understand coordinates, the first thing you need to realize is human beings are different. We've got several people. I mean, you listening to me right now, you know you're very different from your friends. You're different from your brothers or sisters. You're different from your cousins or those in school. Now, you realize that God made each and every one of us different. Now, if you've met some people, you find out that some people are very detailed. You know, if they have points on the board, let's put a big point on the board there. They always want this point to be in this particular location. They don't want anyone moving it. They always want it to be there. Now, that's good, but some people may not necessarily like that. Now, for someone who always wants his point to be in a particular location, he may get into some problems if, for instance, if he put this on the board and I didn't know, and I cleaned this or I wiped this off. So let me take this and I wiped this off mistakenly. And he comes and he says, "Who did that? Who wiped my dot off the board?" Now, it's my job to find out where the dot was and put it back. The issue is we've got this big board. The dot could be anywhere. I'm not sure where he really wants the dot. And you can see this is already bringing a problem which we need to solve in maths. We have a dot that we need to replace on this board, but the dot doesn't have an address. If I wanted to visit you, I would come to your house, I would get your address, wherever you're living. Your address would have a number. Your address would have a number, that's short form for number. That's a dot. Your address will have a street. Your address would have a region or a county. So let's just put that as a region. Right. So now we just had a case where we had a dot on the board erased. Unfortunately, the dot doesn't have a number, doesn't have a street, doesn't have a region. So how can we solve this problem? This is why learning coordinates is very important. So just stay with me, and in the next segment we will find out how to solve this problem of no numbers, no streets, no regions of our dots. If you're just joining us, we've been learning how to solve the problem we have on the board with coordinates. So let's see. Previously we said we had a problem. We had a dot on the board. Someone cleaned it off. Don't tell the person who. And we need to find out how to put that particular dot on the board. But we said we've got an issue. The dot doesn't have an address. So we need to solve this problem. We need a number. Every address has a number. Every address has a street. Every address has a region. So for us to do that, let's have a clean board first of all. And while we have this here, a clean board that's perfectly clean, we've got a clean board. The first thing we need, remember we said we need a number, we need a street, and we need a region. We've got a clear board here. Now when you think of people normally think in ups and downs. You know, when you go into a lift, you're going up to the next floor, the second floor, or the third floor. You're moving up or down. Or if you're looking at a picture and there's several people in the picture, there is a way things are usually described. You probably hear the word, look at your top left, or look at your bottom right. So these are things, you know, we think in tops and downs first before we start thinking left and right. Now, if I want to divide this region into a top and a bottom, what will I need to do? The first thing I'll need to do is to draw an horizontal line. So we have a line here. That's an horizontal line, right? So now this gives me a top. This is the top part, and this gives me a bottom. But now this top and this bottoms, we could call this, or this bottom rather, we could call this bit here our region. So now we have a region. Let me just put that here. We've got a region. Now after a region, the next thing we need is a street. So for us to get our street, streets are smaller parts in a region. Now that I have this region here and this region, how can I divide this region again? Or is there a way I could divide this region? Remember, we spoke about top left and bottom right. Since we've divided this into our top and our bottom, it would be cool or nice if we divide this into left and right. So if we put a vertical line here, cool, so that's roughly straight. Now I have a street. You see, so I could have this whole region here, and now this could be a particular street, and this could be another street. So now we've gotten a region, a street. The next thing we need to get is a number. So we need to put numbers on our lines. Now, you know, we've got a very straight line. If you had a ruler, we could measure this line and say, how long is this line? So if we put, this is the starting point, the point where both lines cross. So that's our starting point, which is our point 0. Okay. Now, if this is 1, that's if we use the ruler and this is point 1, this will be point 2, this will be point 3, this will be point 4, and this will be point 5, right? And this at the top here will be point 1, this will be point 2, this will be point 3, this will be point 4, and this will be point 5. Now we've got positive numbers here, we've got positive numbers here. If we're moving to the other side, which is the opposite, what is the opposite of positive? The opposite of positive is negative. So if we have positive numbers here, right at the top, we would have negative numbers at the bottom. So this would be -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. While in this section, we'll have -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. So now you see, we've solved our problem of the region, right? By dividing this into a top and bottom segment. We've solved the problem of streets by dividing it vertically, and we've also solved the problem of a number by giving our line numbers, measuring the line. So now that we have this, if I came now and put a dot here, my dot can easily have an address. So for us to do that, the first thing I would say, just looking at this, is I know the dot was in this top part. I know it was at the top. I know it was towards my right. Now if I want to get the exact location from my point 0, I'll say, well, for us to get to this dot from our point 0, how many these are numbers, so we could give this any unit. So if we call this meters, for instance, let's just say how many meters will I need to move right? So we'll find out that we would need to move 3 meters. Let me use a blue color for that. We'll need to move 3 meters towards the right, and we will need to move 3 meters again towards the top. So my address here for this dot, let's call the dot A. Right, the dot is A. My address for A would be 3. I moved 3 first towards my right. See, I moved 3 in this direction. Your right is always positive. I moved 3, and we'll put a comma there. And I moved 3 meters up, or 3 steps up. 3, 3. So now if I came and I erased this, and I know that the address for A was 3, 3, I can easily come and say, now that I've cleaned it off, I can put the dot back. All I need to do is to take 3 steps, that's 1, 2, 3, to the right, and 3 steps up. 1, 2, 3. And I'll put the point there. And once we do that, we don't have any issues with anyone because the dot is on the board and everyone is happy. Right. So now that we've learned this, we've seen the importance of this, we'll see how we can apply this in coordinates. Stay tuned. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we've been learning how to solve the problem of measurements with coordinates. So we had this on the board where we had a line dividing our top from the bottom, and we also had a line that divided the left from the right. And we needed this in order to help us define our address, which was a region, down and up, that's our region. We needed it to define a street. So we brought a vertical line to have streets. And we said once you have your region and your street, so your region could be you live in London, your street could be St. Andrew Street. That's not enough. If someone sent a mail to St. Andrew Street in London, there could be a million houses. Well, not maybe a million. Maybe there could be hundreds of houses on St. Andrew Street. How would we get the exact address? So we said we needed numbers, and we put our numbers here. So that's how we got this cross on the board. And we have a dot here, which someone put on the board. And the dot we said before was A. So our dot there is just a position or a point where A is standing. Or let's not say A, let's say Andrew. So Andrew is standing at that particular position on the board. Now, in applying this in real life, there's several things that, several words that we need to learn right now. So we've given you the very basic terms when we said we divided this into regions and we divided this into streets. But when you're speaking to your teachers or you're speaking to others in mathematical language, we don't use the word regions and we don't use the word streets. Now, the line that we used here to divide the top and the bottom has a name in maths. That name is called an axis. That is A, X, I, S. It's called an axis. So we have an axis here to divide, remember, to get our region. We also have this line as an axis to divide the left from the right. But now we've got an issue. So we have axis here and we've got axis here. We've got axis and axis. How will I know the difference between this line and this line? And so some guys came together and they said, that's a good question. The first line that we drew, let's call that X. You know, X is a very interesting letter. Think of how many words you know that begin with X. There, you might know very, very few, like maybe X-ray and maybe the, say, I knew X-ray. So X at times is mysterious. It's a very mysterious letter at times to some people because they don't have a lot of words to use. So they came and they said, let's call this X-axis. Right. And since we drew this first, someone thought, the first line is X. And if you remember your alphabets, after X, the next letter is, that's X. What's the next letter after X? The next letter is Y. So the person said, if Y comes after X, Y, let's use Y as the next one to identify this line. And so they chose this to be Y. So the name of this line here is our X-axis in maths. So you need to remember this. This is X-axis, and this line here, the vertical line, is the Y-axis. Now, when we also, in the previous section, we had the numbers, right? Remember when we had the number 3, 3, which marked our position A, or our position for Andrew in this case. Now, where we have 3, let me use blue for that. This is positions. Let's verify this position. If we move 1, 2, 3, let's see that's there. And we also move up here, 1, 2, 3. So this position here is 3, 3, where the first 3 is for our X-axis and the second 3 is for our Y-axis. Now, when we have 3, 3, if you're giving me your address, you would say your number is number 11 or number 15 or number 20. But in maths, this has a different name. We don't call these numbers, we call them coordinates. So let's write that here, coordinates. See? So we have this line as our x-axis, we have this line as our y-axis, we have this number here as our coordinates. And if you look at this, you may have seen this before in what is called a grid. So the sum of all of this together gives you a grid. Cool. So that's a bunch of names to remember. So the next segment, we will look at some positions of some particular people. There are 4 people that we need to define their positions on the board because they don't seem to remember where they were before. So get an idea of these names and let's move on to the next segment. Welcome back. In this segment, we are looking at helping some people who have forgotten their points on the board. But there's something good. We have an address. So let's go to the board. We've got some people, and let's write the people's names here. We've got Andrew. We're very familiar with Andrew. Now, Andrew lives in maths in 2,3. That's Andrew's address. You know, physically we say a very long address, but in maths we have a very short address. So Andrew's address is 2,3. We've got Sarah's address. Sarah's address is 2, that's 2, minus 1. And now we've got John's address. Who can guess what John's address is? John's address is minus 3, 2. And finally, we've got Mary's address. And Mary's address is minus 4, minus 1. So they know their addresses. We've got Andrew, Sarah, John, and Mary's address. The problem is they don't really know how to use the coordinate system very well. So can we help them find their addresses and put them on the board? Yes, we can. So let's see. Let's start with Andrew. So we've got Andrew. Andrew's address is 2, 3. Andrew's address is 2, 3. So we know the number. The next thing that we need is the street. So Andrew, if you are 2, 3, we know that 2, which is the very first one, is for x. Remember, when we drew our lines, we drew x first, right? Then we drew y. So we need rather the region first. So we need the region. So we've got 2 in Andrew's region. And then now that we know that Andrew's region is 2, the next thing we need to know is what is the street? And we know that the street is 3, which is y. So I'm just using streets and regions, but the numbers here represent x and y. Remember your x-axis and your y-axis. So since we know that 2 is for x, the first one is always x, while the second is always y. So let's go to our board, our grid, and let us move 2 paces. So Andrew, we need to move 2 paces forward. We go 1 and we go 2. Now, we are doing this with a pen, which is okay. Later on, you may need to erase these lines. We'll do that later. So we've moved 2 spaces in the x in the positive direction because Andrew's first number is 2, and then y is 3. That means we need to go up. So now we move up 1, 2, 3. So we've gotten the spot for Andrew. So Andrew is very happy. Yay! That's Andrew's point. So Andrew is happy. Let's give Andrew a tick. We've helped Andrew. Now let's see, who should we help? Let's help Sarah now. So we've got Sarah. Sarah's point is 2, minus 1. That's 2 again in the positive direction. So let's move forward 1, 2. But this time she's going minus 1. She's going in the other direction 1 space. And this is the other direction, that is down. We moved up, now we're moving down. So we're moving down 1 pace, and we've got the point here. That's all. And that is Sarah's point or Sarah's location. Now that we've helped Sarah, let's see if we can help John. John's position is minus 3, 2. So we've got minus 3, minus 3. The first is x. So we know this is our x. And we're moving minus 3. So this is the positive part for x. And this is the negative part. That means we're moving towards our left. So minus 3, let's move. That's 1, 2, 3. And then he moved 2 steps in the positive y direction. That's why it's a 2. And we move 1, 2. That's the point for John. And now, finally, we've got Mary. So let's give John a tick. Let's see if we can help Mary. Mary said she was at minus 4 comma minus 1. Minus 4 comma minus 1. So we've got minus 4 first in the x position. So minus 4. We need to move towards our left. So minus 4. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then she went minus 1 in the y direction. And that's coming down here. So this point here is Mary's location. So you see, because we know coordinates and we know how to plot coordinates, we've helped Andrew, Sarah, John, and Mary to find their positions on the board, which is very, very cool. So if people ever lose their positions wherever they are, since you know coordinates, you can help them find their locations wherever they are. Well, that's all we can take. Stay tuned for the scripture for today, which is a very cool scripture. Today, we've learned about how to plot coordinates. We found out that we had to solve a particular problem, a problem of finding positions on a board where we don't have addresses. So we found out the problem of how to get an address, how to get a region, and we found out some cool new names like x-axis, y-axis, coordinates. These are very nice names, very cool names, and you'll become familiar with them with time. So keep practicing with coordinates, keep plotting several coordinates, and help several people find their points wherever they are. Well, that's all we can take. Keep practicing and have fun with maths. Bye-bye.